My name is Arthur Levin, and I'm 86 years old. I woke up this morning before the sun, the way I do now, and it hit me again, that quiet understanding that most of my life is already behind me, and I didn't notice it passing. I'm not telling this because I need anyone to see me. I'm telling it because I finally understand why I felt invisible my entire life, and it took this long to see it clearly. At 86, clarity doesn't arrive like a revelation. It settles in slowly, like dust after a long day, when nothing is moving anymore and you can finally see what's been there all along. I live alone now, a small apartment that smells faintly of old paper and whatever I cooked last night. The walls are thin. I hear my neighbors' television through them, game shows and laughter that isn't meant for me. I don't mind the quiet. I used to think I did, but now I understand that I've lived in quiet for decades. I just didn't call it that. People think old age is when loneliness begins. That's not true. Old age is just when it stops being hidden. I've been invisible since I was young. Not in a dramatic way. No one pushed me into corners or told me I didn't matter. It was softer than that. Polite, almost. When you're young, you believe being needed is the same as being seen. It isn't. I grew up during the tail end of the Depression. My father worked 2 jobs and still came home tired. My mother kept the house quiet, like noise itself was a luxury we couldn't afford. There wasn't much room for feelings in that house. You ate what was on your plate. You didn't complain. You didn't ask for more than what was offered. I learned early that the safest way to exist was to take up as little space as possible. Teachers liked me. Employers liked me. I never gave anyone a reason not to. And somewhere along the way, I confused approval with connection. In my 20s, I worked as a junior accountant for a shipping company. The office smelled like ink and burnt coffee. Rows of desks, men in shirt sleeves, women typing quietly. Every day followed the same rhythm. Numbers, lunch at the same diner, back to numbers. I told myself this was adulthood, stability, responsibility. I told myself passion was for people who could afford mistakes. I didn't hate my work, that's important. I just didn't love it either. It filled the hours, it paid the bills. It made my parents proud. I thought that was what mattered. I married Helen when I was 29. She had a soft laugh and a way of tilting her head when she listened, like she was really trying to understand you. She noticed me, or at least I thought she did. We had a small wedding, nothing extravagant. I remember her hands shaking when she said her vows. I remember promising myself I would always be steady for her. And I was. I was steady, dependable, predictable. I paid the mortgage on time. I fixed things when they broke. I came home every night. But I didn't talk much. I didn't know how. When Helen would ask me what I wanted, I'd say, "Whatever you think is best." At the time, I thought that was kindness, flexibility, love. Now I understand it was fear. Fear of being wrong. Fear of asking for something and not getting it. Fear of being seen too clearly. We had 2 children, a son and a daughter. Both healthy, both bright. I went to their school events when I could, sat in the folding chairs, clapped at the right times. I remember missing my daughter's piano recital because a client needed a report finalized. I told myself she was young. There would be others. There were, and I missed some of those too. Not all at once. Just enough that she stopped checking the audience. That's how it happens. Not with a single, unforgivable act, but with a pattern so quiet you barely hear it forming. At work, I was promoted slowly. Never fast enough to draw attention, never slow enough to raise concern. People trusted me. They gave me more responsibility, more hours. I wore that trust like a badge. I told myself I was doing the right thing. When Helen would mention feeling lonely, I'd tell her things would calm down soon, after this quarter, after this project, after the kids were older. There was always an after. I didn't realize that later can be a way of avoiding now forever. In my 40s, my days became routines stacked on top of each other. Wake up, commute, work, dinner, sleep. I remember sitting at the kitchen table one night, Helen across from me, the kids already in bed. She was talking about something that happened at work, and I was nodding, half listening, thinking about a spreadsheet I hadn't finished. She stopped mid-sentence. "Are you even here?" she asked. I looked up, confused. "Of course," I said, but even as I said it, I knew what she meant. I was physically present in many rooms. Emotionally, I hovered just outside them. She didn't argue. She just nodded and went quiet. That silence lasted years. When the kids moved out, the house echoed. I told myself this was normal, that couples go through phases. Helen started going out more, book clubs, walks, coffee with friends. I stayed home. The couch knew my shape better than she did. I wasn't unhappy. That's what I told myself, just tired. Then she got sick. Not suddenly, slowly. A diagnosis that came with pamphlets and careful explanations. I went to every appointment, sat in every waiting room. I held her hand when she was scared. I learned how to cook the meals she could stomach. People praised me for being such a devoted husband. They didn't see how much of our life had already slipped through our fingers. She died when I was 68. The house felt enormous after that. Too many corners where her absence settled. At the funeral, people told me she was lucky to have me. I nodded and thanked them. I didn't correct them. I didn't know how. After she was gone, the days stretched. Work eventually ended. Retirement arrived with a handshake and a plaque. No one calls you after you retire. Not really. They say they will. They mean it. But life keeps moving. I filled my time with errands, walks, television. I told myself I liked the simplicity. The kids called on holidays, sometimes more often, sometimes less. They had lives. I was proud of them. But there was a distance. Not anger, not resentment, just space that never closed. I started noticing how often I could go days without speaking out loud, how my voice sounded unfamiliar to my own ears. That's when the feeling returned, the one I'd had my whole life but never named. Invisibility, not being ignored, being overlooked, like a piece of furniture that's useful but unremarkable. It wasn't until last year, sitting in a waiting room for my own appointment, that it finally clicked. I was watching people pass, younger, older, some alone, some together. And I realized something I wish I'd known earlier. I wasn't invisible because people didn't care. I was invisible because I never insisted on being seen. I spent my life trying to be easy, agreeable, reliable. I thought if I caused no problems, I would be loved. But love doesn't grow in the absence of friction. It grows in presence, in honesty, in showing up as yourself, even when it's uncomfortable. I avoided conflict so thoroughly that I avoided intimacy along with it. I waited to be asked instead of offering. I waited to be noticed instead of stepping forward. And the world, busy as it is, simply kept moving. There was no villain, no single mistake, just a lifetime of small silences. Things I can't fix now. I can't go back to that piano recital. I can't redo conversations that never happened. I can't tell Helen, while she was still here, that I was scared too, that I didn't know how to be more than steady. All I can do is sit with the truth of it. That invisibility isn't something others impose. Sometimes it's something we practice until it becomes habit. If you're listening to this, I don't know where you are in your life. I'm not here to tell you what to do. I wouldn't know how. I just know that time is quieter than we expect. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't warn you when it's running low. It just keeps going. If there's something you keep postponing because it feels safer to wait, I understand that instinct. I lived by it. I also know what it costs. I have moments now sitting by the window watching the light change on the buildings across the street when I feel grateful. Truly, I had a life. I mattered to people. I wasn't alone in every way, but there's sorrow too. Not sharp, just deep. A sense of having been present for less of my own life than I could have been. I don't expect to be remembered widely. Most of us aren't. What I hope is that someone hears this and feels less alone in their own quiet. I'm 86 years old. My time is shorter now. That's not a complaint, just a fact. I spend my days simply. I speak when I can. I listen when I'm able. I try now to be where I am. That's all I have left to do. Thank you for sitting with me for a while. It means more than you might think.